Thanks for tuning in to my review of The Persistence on PSVR.
Well, that was lovely.
I don't know how you can joke about it.
What's the alternative?
Studio Liverpool and Psygnosis in particular have a very special place in my heart. From Shadow of the Beast to Wipeout, the studios were responsible for some of my favourite gaming memories. So when I saw Firesprite born out of their ashes and were developing a VR sci-fi horror title after great work on The Playroom and Run Sackboy Run, my expectations were pretty high. But then terms such as roguelike and procedurally generated arose, and my hopes were soon kept in check. I've been burnt by such mechanics before, so I entered the game a little timidly. Caught in a black hole, the crew mutated and murderous, you play a security officer who is a clone, an imprint if you will, whereby every time you die, a new clone is created with all of her previous memories. This also means the layout of the ship changes every time, meaning no two playthroughs are ever the same, as you voyage around a vessel darker than Joseph Fritzl's basement. Booting this up on the PS4 Pro, I was instantly impressed. With the resolution very close to pin sharp, some sparse lighting littering the dingy corridors is employed effectively to cover up the odd minor flaw. As the game takes place over 4 decks of the ship, you obviously won't find a huge amount of variety in the environments. But despite this, they never felt repetitive or mundane, with the steel and girders strangely providing a sense of comfort and continuity in a never-changing game space. Texture work is minimal yet solid, and certainly in keeping with the cold metal setting. Infrequently there is the odd texture pop-in, but draw distances are impressive, making the odd graphical shortcoming really stand out in a highly optimised experience. Particle work emanating from the creatures such as the Weepers is at times spectacular, and some of the blood spatter effects are lavishly over the top, really emphasising the bone-crunching impact of smashing a mutant repeatedly into the floor. And speaking of the mutants, most are modelled and animated with some great detail and nuance. Berserkers heave before launching into a surprisingly ferocious sprint, and listeners reach out like they're trying to steal your last breath. While there's not a huge array of creature types, what's here is as genuinely imposing as it is malevolent, but the most impressive assets in the game are the guns in your very own hands. They are by far the sharpest elements, with the weapon design feeling grounded despite its outlandish sci-fi functionality and design. As mentioned earlier, lighting is minimal, meaning your flashlight is integral when navigating the ship's interior. But there is one standout feature in juxtaposition to this, which is the darkness itself. At times it seems vast and oppressive, swallowing your flashlight whole, making you question if it's even on. At other times it teases in pockets, hiding something threatening in a crevice. On the Pro, performance was very stable, with no frame rate hiccups or screen tearing, even when the action becomes a little more frantic. As a graphical package, it's very accomplished, but a very slight lick of polish may be needed in a couple of areas, which no doubt a small patch could address. The sound design in The Persistence is some of the best I've heard on the platform. The creaks, bangs and groans of the ship enhances the trepidation during the quieter moments, with venting steam pipes giving you a little jolt. The murmurings of the mutants remind you that some of their human memories still linger, until they see you that is. They snarl and growl, turning feral in their attempt to claw, shoot, stab and rip your face off. Voice work is sparse, with interplay restricted to your player character and the chief engineer Serena, who acts as your guide and a repository of knowledge. The exposition is handled well, with conversations sounding natural and delivered convincingly. Music is used sparingly, with the aforementioned ambient effects taking precedent. However, the soundtrack contains more than enough swells and stings, complementing set pieces or where the action intensifies. As a whole, the high production values of the graphics are reflected in the soundtrack, and while you will become immune to the jump scares after the first hour or so, there will be some great moments that could potentially have you touching cloth. Operating the game is undertaken using a DualShock 4 only. While some have lamented the lack of aim or move support, I found the control scheme intuitive and responsive, with the control pad seeming the best fit, especially with the aiming performed using head tracking. The game gives you full locomotion and smooth turning, but there are more than enough accessibility options for those susceptible to motion sickness. The tracking was spot on, despite a relatively small dead zone if you lean forwards or back too far from your calibrated position. Combat feels meaty, with melee attacks connecting with a weighty thud, while guns feel empowering, with satisfying aiming and shooting. Grenades and experimental weapons can get you out of a tight spot, or can be used as a distraction to either wade in and pulverise the minions or retreat to a safe distance. Teleportation is also another important mechanic when engaging in skirmishes. Similar to Doom VFR, teleporting out of danger when swarmed or to get behind an enemy to harvest their stem cells adds an extra dimension to fight or flight encounters. This ability, along with Super Sense, a cross between night and infrared vision, is tied to your dark matter meter, meaning it has to be used sparingly. Getting caught short in the middle of a conflict can mean the difference between life and death, but my favourite mechanic is the shield. Time it right and you can stun an enemy enough to get behind and finish them off. Time it incorrectly and your limited shield can be depleted just as a mutant attacks. Its inclusion adds a welcome defense and counter-attack element to proceedings. All of these are upgradable via various in-game currencies. Stem cells can be used to enhance your base attributes such as health, melee, stealth and dark matter, with fab chips allowing you to upgrade your suit, harvester, shield and various other schematics to give you perks for your chosen playstyle, such as increasing loot drops, stealth or weapon strength. Tokens also allow you to upgrade your weapons at the stations. The great thing about the augmentation is that it allows you to swap between playstyles, like a brawler, lurker or currency farmer. It feels well balanced, with you only feeling slightly overpowered towards the end of the game, with enemies on high decks requiring significant upgrades if you're going to better them. Also, locating deceased crew members and harvesting their DNA allows you to print them as clones, with each one having individual enhancements. The Solex mobile companion app allows a non-VR player to jump into your game to either help or hinder you using a smartphone or tablet. The interface is clean and intuitive, with this player being able to uncover items, unlock doors, tag and freeze enemies and even turn the lights off, which can lead to some marital disagreements. Your mileage may vary when using the app, and it's not integral to the experience, but it does foster teamwork if they're on your side. When skirmishes become more heavy, the ability to freeze an enemy can give you some much needed breathing space, allowing you to concentrate on the bigger threats. My initial worries about the roguelike aspect of the game were soon dispelled, with Firesprite nailing the way this works. You die, you lose all of your weapons, go back to recovery, but retain the various currencies you've collected. Instead of feeling frustrating, each time you feel a little wiser, a little more empowered, with a real sense of progress despite the setback. The procedurally generated levels keep things feeling fresh, with my only slight criticism is that on occasion, the algorithm can spit out a layout that is significantly harder than your previous run, but this is few and far between during the 7 to 10 hour campaign. Having spoken to Firesprite before the trophies went live, they confirmed there was a platinum trophy that was extremely tough, and while it certainly provides a significant challenge, it's not as daunting as it first seems, with the platinum difficulty coming in at around a 6 out of 10. Most trophies will come naturally through the game's runtime, with 2 trophies related to obtaining a good and a bad ending. But some of the miscellaneous trophies, such as kill a mutant with a hidden siren grenade, can prove more luck than skill based. Other trophies like get 10 headshots in a row are very easy if you pick the right enemy, such as the slow moving but bullet sponge Bloodhound. Trophies for visiting all 4 decks without crafting or collecting anything, or visiting the lower 2 without walking are relatively easy, as long as you attempt these later when your dark matter and harvester are highly upgraded. There is a survival mode to unlock, but fortunately no trophies are tied to this, as this could have potentially ramped up the difficulty. Those tied to upgrading your base abilities and creating epic schematics will require some farming, but equipping loot and harvester perks will cut down on this significantly, so bear this in mind if you are going for the plat. You will most likely require some post-game cleanup, but the platinum can be obtained in around 12 to 18 hours, depending on your perk loadout. Firesprite have not only delivered one of the best PSVR games of this year, they've delivered one of the best PSVR games full stop. It proves it's more than just a bunch of jump scares, as when the sphincter twitching gradually subsides, the full extent of its fulfilling and fun gameplay mechanics are truly revealed. Its risk versus reward style approach adds a welcome strategic element in the approach you take, elevating it above some of its peers. I know full well my high expectations could have set me up for a fall, but the persistence has not only matched them, it's changed my opinion on roguelike and procedurally generated mechanics, showing when implemented correctly, they can really enhance gameplay and longevity. If you're going into this expecting constant pant-wetting scares, this might not be for you, but if you're looking for a challenging and rewarding experience, this comes highly recommended.